In the industrial world, there are cases where companies that at first glance appear to be operating normally go bankrupt, or when their activities become public knowledge, their reputations fall because they have been operating in a way that is so full of contradictions. Here are some examples that JMA members have come across. There are cases where the top management's successful experience does not realize that there is a problem with the company's activities, even if it is clearly problematic from a common-sense perspective, and the company eventually goes bankrupt. This diagram shows the items that Mr. Noguchi investigated in conjunction with the establishment of Yakikai, which helps small and medium-sized companies facing the risk of bankruptcy after reflecting on his own experience. This type of content has a high degree of commonality, so, from now, I would like to introduce some examples from a book by Mr. Nakamura, which introduces cases of such a contradiction destroys the company, that the full-time lecturers and consultants who support companies at JMA have encountered. Even a child can understand that companies that sell products without regard for quality or the customer should not exist in the world. However, there have been cases where companies that were continuing to make profits despite this caused social problems. In Japan, it was completely incomprehensible that a company could exist that would betray social trust, so a lot of criticism poured in. Naturally, this led to the dramatic apology shown in this diagram. This kind of problem calls into question the social responsibility of companies. As shown by the top line in this diagram, only companies that conduct business activities as they should be operating in the industrial world. There are still companies and groups today that fall into crime or that operate with criminal intent from the start, but they are subject to strict regulations. Under such laws, even if a person commits a crime and makes a temporary profit, once the crime is discovered, they will lose several times the profit they made from that act. Even a child can understand this. And yet, companies that choose to behave in this way are still occasionally reported in the news. When such crimes are discovered, there are cases where those involved use corporate culture as an excuse for their remorse at press conferences, but this explanation is incorrect. The mastermind is always an individual. If a group commits a crime, there is always an individual who acts as the leader. Therefore, in this analysis, the vertical axis shows the individuals in the companies who commit crimes. The horizontal axis also shows countermeasures. This matrix lists representative cases of major incidents that have occurred in Japan in the past. In a sense, the prevention and eradication of crimes have been considered one of the eternal challenges of humanity, and I hope that each company will use this analysis as a reference to take effective preventive measures, along with strengthening regulations. Quality compliance issues include criminal acts and cases where defects are released without any malicious intent, and customers are forced to comply. When analyzing the defect countermeasure activities of such companies, as shown in the figure, there are cases where the situation that produces defects is left unattended, defect statistics are collected, and based on that, people who are called veterans in the quality field of the company hold regular brainstorming-style meetings, or the death certificate method, where the problem countermeasures are presented to those involved in the field and small group brainstorming countermeasures are left to them. Defect countermeasures should essentially utilize Heinrich's principle, and when the risk that arises from the defect is discovered, the actual product should be captured on-site and the cause should be investigated based on the facts. However, there are still companies that carry out this type of ritual. We should classify this type of company as part of the "such a contradiction destroys the company" category. Companies that are busy with corporate social responsibility and internal troubles, such as not only defects but also equipment failures, safety issues, and pollution, but do not seriously seek to identify and eliminate the causes of such problems, will continue to be caught up in the devil's cycle shown in this diagram. In this sense, companies should invest time, people, and useful measures in these types of problems. However, companies that continue to operate while ignoring such problems are easily in danger of falling into such a contradiction, destroys the company. We live in an information-based era where employees are becoming more highly educated. As a result, most of the problems in this diagram could be solved by forming a project team in-house and taking measures. However, in addition to the quality measures introduced so far, there are companies that, when a problem occurs, neglect to analyze the current situation and leave the problem to a consulting company that is considered to be an expert in the field. Abandoning such an environment and immediately requesting a consulting company to solve the problem can sometimes mean abandoning the management measures that the company should be taking. Also, there are cases where requesting measures such as those shown in this diagram from a type of unscrupulous consultant who tries to make a profit by making a good pitch for solving such problems can result in not only huge expenses but also a waste of time. In the 1990s, there was a time when visualization measures caused a frenzy in the industrial world in Japan. In such companies, large documents handwritten on large pieces of paper were hung in the corridors and workplaces of the factory, even for things that could have been printed out on a PC and used in factory activities, or even verbally instructed. Mr. Nakamura was once asked by one such factory to assist with defect countermeasures, but the on-site managers were taking up too much time to create these large documents, and the countermeasures did not progress. So he asked the company to stop creating the large documents and to help with defect countermeasures. As a result, the defect statistics documents that had been drawn on the large documents disappeared. The company's main business was producing quality products, not creating large documents. Furthermore, when Mr. Nakamura introduced this case, many companies switched to similar behavior. In the 1990s, Mr. Y, a former newspaper reporter, proposed a cell production method called the Utaya method, and since labor costs in China were 1/30 of those in Japan, he promoted it as an effective solution. With the help of media coverage, companies rushed to seek productivity improvement measures. The method was based on the slogan, "If you put excellent workers in a parts warehouse, you can triple your productivity in 3 years with awareness and self-help," and was exactly like the method shown in the diagram. However, even if the Utaya method in the upper left of the figure achieves 3 times the productivity in 3 years, it will not cover 1/30 of the labor costs. Many companies with this kind of problem came to JMA for advice, so we held a seminar. By using IE methods known as scientific work improvement, the method that took 3 years to achieve the form shown in the upper left of the figure and tripled productivity could be further increased by 2 to 3 times in about 1.5 days. But the trainees at JMA learned that in order to achieve 30 times the productivity, there was a design-in measure in which on-site personnel participated in the design improvement of K Company's copy machine, which Mr. Y used as a model. Mr. Y promoted the left side of the figure without knowing the situation, and the company personnel who took the promotion seriously learned about the situation and that by using IE methods, they could achieve more than 3 times the productivity during JMA training. As a result, they reflected on the time they had wasted. In the 1990s, the phrase 5SS measures are the basis of factory improvement was popular in Japan. If you interpret 5SS as a tool for eliminating waste and use it together with IE methods, then this explanation is correct. However, companies that were unaware of this and listened to the explanations of consultants came to believe that, if you repeatedly clean and compete in beautifying your factory, you will be evaluated as a company that practices 5SS, as shown in the figure, and this interpretation spread widely not only to companies in Japan but also to companies overseas. Cleaning can be minimized if the source of the problem is addressed. In short, Cleaning the problem should be the starting point of 5SS improvement. So Mr. Nakamura and his team organized and sorted out the problem of where and how is 5SS useful, and the effect of the measures, like this matrix. In short, they showed the industrial world that it is important for each factory to use the 5SS improvement method by looking at the target and the business effect. The reason is that repeated cleaning can reproduce the beautification, but it will only result in repeated useless work. Such actions are just imitating the explanations of others, similar to the other examples explained so far, and there is a risk that such a contradiction destroys the company. This time, in part of this book, we have introduced one example where companies have suffered great damage and wasted time, but there are many other examples introduced, so please refer to them. Thank you very much for watching the introduction to this Kindle book. The above explanation is the gist of this picture book. You can also get it at this URL. Amazon Prime members can watch it for free.